Hey, y'all, just bear with me for a minute. I have to send out invites to the space, so just stand by, folks. Hello, and welcome to the longest running poker space. I'm Sherry Pluskota, your host, and I see ASG has joined us as my co host. Hey, ASG,
Hello.
glad you could join me. And of course, let me give a proper introduction to tonight's guest. My guest tonight has both creative writing and physics degrees. He is currently on the staff of poker.org, and before that, he worked for Poker News. TJ Reid is originally from St. Louis and currently resides in California. Poker is not his only passion. He enjoys disc golf, watching movies, and creating trivia questions for his pub business of trivia. TJ's live earnings listed on the Hendon Mob are over 3.7 million. His best live cash is over $3 million for his recent fourth place finish in the super main event in Paradise, which was about a month ago. A side note, 3.2 million of his total live earnings was earned in the year 2025. What a heck of a year. Welcome, TJ. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Sherry. ASG. Appreciate you inviting me to join you. Doing very well. It helps, that the end of 2025 was amazing, as you highlighted there.
It
But
was
I'm current.
it was
Yeah.
amazing for sure. Okay, now are you really do you need me to walk you through the space, or are you familiar with space? What's like located in the controls down at the bottom of a space?
Haven't used it too much. Seems fairly intuitive. If I
Okay.
mess it up, you slap me on the wrist. But
No, you're good. I just try to help what we would consider newbies, just to make your life easier. Of course, the microphone button is down on the bottom left. I appreciate it if you turn it off when you're not speaking, only because we get feedback and background noise. It's really kind of crazy here sometimes in the spaces. To the right of that is a little wand, and that is our sound effects board. And we try to stay away from it while we're doing the interview just because it can be disruptive. Although sometimes we get a troll that sneaks in and has their way with the soundboard. To the right of that magic wand is a little person icon. And when you click on that, it just shows you who's in the space and what their job is here. To the right of that is a little heart. And that is where you can find emojis to send up when somebody's talking, you agree with them, or, sad for them, laughing at them. We wish sometimes they had a middle finger there, but maybe the Elon will institute that this year. To the right of that is a pair of scissors. If you want to clip an audio clip, that's what you would use. Then to the very far right is a speech bubble, and that's where people can put a question or comment about what we're talking about here. Sometimes folks don't want a microphone, but they still want to ask a question, so they'll put a question in that chat for this space. Of course, at the top right is an exit button. We ask you to stay away from that, although all of us have fat fingers. Sometimes we hit it accidentally. If you do, just go out and come back in, and we just hit the ground running from there. So just a brief overlook of what a space looks like. And I really appreciate you being here for sure. Um, I want to ask you the first question, just because it's near and dear to my heart, and that is, how did you end up living outside the gates of Yellowstone National Park?
Well, I'm way up in Northern California now, so I don't know that I would describe it outside the gates. Although I guess in comparison with the rest of the country, it's fairly close. I followed a girl out to Northern California. I grew up in the St. Louis area, and then met her when she was in medical school, and
Okay, so
we went
you
out to.
so wonderful. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're fine. No, I followed her out to Idaho for her medical school. And
Got
we
it.
were for residency, that is. And then once we graduated residency there, we went up to Northern California to work in a place that really, really needed doctors.
Awesome. Very cool. And I'm going to tell you, I love Yellowstone National Park, and I've been there a couple of times and have spent many days there. I do photography, and it's like a heaven for me to go there and take pictures, of course. And so when I read that, I was like, oh, lucky duck. He lived around there for a while and had that opportunity. So I need to say a couple of commercials. I kind of hit the ground running, but I need to do a little housekeeping. First, many thanks to my sponsor, Elevator Results. If you need a tailor made workout plan to help you lose weight or gain weight, Elevator Results can help design that plan. Follow them on Twitter and check out their site at elevatorresultspt.com. Also, want to give a little shout out for prayers for our friend Fats. He's still battling cancer and he's been down and under the weather. So, prayers going out to him and to our friend Matt that's over in the UK. He's down under the weather today. And special intentions for Space's friend who lost his mom recently. And so his family is going through that heartache, of course. So moving right along, can you tell us how you got started in the world of poker, TJ?
TJ, Terrence, either way works for
I
me.
hear
By the
you.
way,
I hear
you
you.
don't have to catch yourself. Yeah. Boy, it's really a long story, but I'll give you the short version, and then we can branch
Sure.
off from there. Like, so I grew up in a very religious household as a Jehovah's Witness, and no gambling, none of that world was really involved. And I left that world in my early 20s, and I was basically looking for a way to make a living and to rebuild my life with no college education and no career uh, interest really at all. I was trying to start from scratch basically,
Right.
and I was bartending and I was doing customer service jobs. I had a job at Starbucks. I worked in a call center, like all those sort of jobs, trying to find a space in the world and pay the rent. And at one of the jobs, I was a restaurant manager, and one of my server assistants, his name was Sean Flam from St. Louis, Missouri, played poker on the side, and that was my first introduction, like playing poker for money. I had played poker as a kid, and I knew the game, and I enjoyed playing with friends and stuff. But he taught me what it was like to like play for a casino for a living.
So were
Um,
you guys playing limit or no limit?
that was No Limit. The first game I ever played was No Limit Hold'em. It was 1-3 at Lumiere in St. Louis, Missouri. So I came in probably my
Okay.
first, like 13, 14 years ago, something like that, was my first hand of poker.
So in the big scheme of things, not very long ago at all.
No, not very long ago at all. And I came in fairly late. So I missed the moneymaker boom and stuff. I was just after that. And then played cash for most of my 20s before switching over to tournaments about 5 or 6 years ago.
So do you play much cash at all these days?
Very rarely when there's a juice. Usually, it's like 95% tournaments, 5% cash, and that 5% is usually like streamed games. You get invites to play streamed games at the Lodge
Right.
or Bally Live or Commerce, and I love playing those games. I think it's fun playing on streams, be able to watch yourself back, interact with the chat. It's good for promoting your own personal brands and stuff. And
Sure.
then private games, like just played with Boston Jimmy down in Las Vegas for the first time last month, and they took a bunch of my money. So those games are fun, but I definitely, like, all my study, all my interest is devoted to tournaments. Cash is sort of just a casual, fun thing that I do these days.
I love it. Now, you brought up the lodge. Why do they call you, why is your screen name Notorious TJ on the lodge stream?
Oh, that's a great question. I love playing at the Lodge. I was playing there long before Doug Polk and Company bought it, before they moved into their new room, back at their old room.
Me
Met,
too, for the record.
yeah, excellent. So Skull Mike and Slick Rick, they were running the show, and I
Right.
went down to Austin for the first time. My dream was to play on that stream. And I emailed Skull Mike and I told him, "Hey, I'm coming down. I'd love to play." It was a little last minute. And he said, "We're pretty booked, but we'll get you in like the early game." And I jumped in an early, I think it was a 2-5 game, which was like a pre-stream game. And I gambled harder than I ever have. And I played like a 90% VPIP, and I was given action left and right. And then at the end of that game, Skull came up to me and he said, "You know what? You got a spot in tonight's game." So I played my way into the stream game that night, and they were
Nice.
trying. Slick Rick came up and asked me, "What do you want your screen name to be?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't have a nickname. I looked around at everybody at the table. I think it was Jay Win, who's a popular member down there.
Yeah.
Said because I had a big, thick red beard at the time, and he said you kind of look like Conor McGregor. So from that moment, they threw on Notorious, and I didn't argue against it. And I don't really go by Notorious anywhere else except for the lodge. But
I
it's
love
stuck
it.
when I'm down there.
I love it. When I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder why they call him notorious. Like I was just trying to think of like scenarios in my own mind of how you would have earned that nickname. And believe me, I came up with some good scenarios, but we won't go into that. What do you do to improve your game?
These days, it's a lot of interaction with other players around my skill level. When I started studying tournament poker. I started with Faraz Jaka at Jaka Coaching. It was my
Right,
first interest in like studying with somebody who was better than me. And so his group lessons and stuff helped me quite a bit just to improve my baseline. And then a lot of I'll just watching final tables and watching stream games of some of the best players in the world helps me quite a bit just to see why they're doing what they're doing and pick up on patterns and bet sizings and stuff, both as a fan, but also as a student of the game. And then group chats and trusted advisors who I really value their opinion. So, hand histories and sharing hands
right,
and challenging the way I think about the game. I think the greatest plateau a player can run into is thinking they know everything and thinking that anyone who feels differently is wrong. And so I love being told that I'm thinking about something wrong. It's really, really refreshing. And, I'm going to argue with you and I'm going to state my opinion. And I think that's how we learn, being willing to express why we think what we think, but also go in with an open mind. So having some people who, a close group of friends and advisors and players who are slightly better than you or slightly worse than you to talk through things and be open to being wrong.
I love that. Now, do you or have you ever hired like a private coach? Do you do private coaching for yourself?
I did one-on-one private coaching one time with a tournament coach who prefers not to be named. But most of it was group coaching with Faraz, and then one-on-one coaching with his private coach for about 6 months. And then after that, the study looks like what I just outlined just recently. So I think one-on-one coaching is extremely valuable, especially for online players that have a database of hands that can be broken down.
Right.
Um, Given that I rarely play online and I'm almost purely live and just the volume isn't there to look at a database of hands, I think it's much more valuable to study the game like I do.
Do you believe in keeping track of like a notebook or individual hands somehow on an app or anything?
I do, but I think most people do it incorrectly. I think most people focus on the hands that are just extremely emotional, like the big coolers or the big flips that result in them busting the tournament or stuff like that.
Right.
And those hands are just a normal part of tournament poker that we just have to live with and don't really deserve our time. I think the biggest thing is identifying when you have a feeling that you don't know what to do, that you're not sure what you're supposed to do, or you're uncomfortable. And that should be a just a flashing red light for somebody who plays tournament poker that like I need to study this spot more. I need to get more comfortable at this stack depth, or I need to know what to do with this hand type. And instead, usually they just gloss over that because it's uncomfortable, right? They just forget
Right.
about it pretty quickly and just write it off to the fact that they were uncomfortable and then they move on. So ace king versus queens for 50 bigs when you're three from the money. It sucks when that happens and you lose, but it really shouldn't dedicate any of our study or our resource time. Instead, when you look down at Jack 10 suited facing a cutoff open and you're on the button and you're really not sure what you're supposed to do, like that's the spot that you should be studying more than the coolers that eliminate you from the tournament.
Amen. I love that advice. Is there anything you can give us, give my audience members, like a leak that you think a lot of players make that need to, that they need to work on correcting?
I think, well, it's so player dependent, but I think most of the leaks come from the spots that come up the most frequently. And so I think the majority of our study time should be focused on the spots in tournament poker, at least, that come up most frequently. One example is like button versus big blind. And you should know really, really well what your ranges are at all stack depths, button versus big blind, because it's a confrontation that comes up almost every orbit, right? And so if you're unsure of what hands to play in that configuration, you're going to bleed money one way or the other, either being too loose or too tight. And I think people, the meta in poker changes so frequently. Before we used to under defend in the big blind, and now people over defend in the big blind. But no matter which side you lean on in the poker meta and in that configuration, you should be comfortable and confident in your plays. And usually, to answer your question, people are too passive in that situation. So we get to defend a ton of hands in the big blind, and we get to play very aggressively big blind against both button opens and button continuation bets, way more than one would think naturally is appropriate. So learning that spot will improve your win rate drastically at all levels of tournaments.
Great advice. Great advice. Do you have a pre-tournament ritual?
I'll tell you what it is. It's very simple. It is sleep as long as I possibly can. Preferably, I'm waking up at least an hour before the tournament starts, and then in that hour, I'm doing. I prefer not to see anybody. I want to be by myself. I want to do some light calisthenics and just get the blood pumping and the heart rate going.
Right.
So get some. Usually that happens in the room. I'm not like waking up and hitting the gym in the morning,
Right.
despite what most people recommend. And then getting a little caffeine and a little food, but nothing too heavy. Just something light, like a turkey bacon sandwich or something. I think I ate 20 turkey bacon sandwiches at Paradise Bahamas from Starbucks. Um, so a little caffeine, a little food, a little light calisthenics, and preferably a little sunshine if I can. Just to, I want the mind thinking clearly. I don't want to be thinking about food or tiredness or anything else but poker. So if there's any distractions, I want to eliminate them just so I can focus when I sit down at the table.
I hear you. Thank you for sharing that with us. I know you've played poker in many locations outside the US, like the Irish Open, the Bahamas, Barcelona, Malta, Manchester. Do you have a favorite poker room outside or even poker series outside of the US?
I think for the poker itself, while I've only been once, it catapults itself to the top as the Irish Poker Open. For anyone who's never been, it is a massive 2 week long party outside of the WSOP summer, and I'm gonna state this as a fact, but I'm pretty sure it's true. Challenge me on it. I think it's the longest running series outside of the World Series of Poker in the world. And it is just so much history. The people who run it really, really care. Half the field is drunk from the shuffle up and deal of the first event. And then out back, they run something called the Crack Den, which CRAIC, it just means fun to Irish people. And they have an event or a player party going every single night, all series long.
I love it.
So where like you go to a PokerStars event, an EPT or something, and there's like one player party, right?
Right.
But they run a party every single night. It's one of the, no matter what your results are, whether you're winning or losing, everyone is having a great time. And
Well,
that's
and
one
nobody
of,
could ever
yeah,
doubt yeah, nobody could ever doubt that the Irish should be the ones to have a player party every night, right? And I'm going to tell you, the Irish Open has been on my bucket list of places to go for about 5 or 6 years now. And next week, I'm going to actually interview Tanya Masters, who is heavily involved with all of the poker in Ireland, of course, and the Irish Open. So looking forward to that interview as well. But how about a favorite poker room or series here in the US?
Poker Room and series. To be honest, I think that the Thunder Valley room is one of my favorites. It'd be hard to put one above it. Ben Irwin, who runs that room out there, really cares about his players. Is very passionate. Loves trying new fun things, and the staff, the location. It's in Northern California in the Sacramento area, so it's one of the few
Right?
places that I can drive to. I try to attend every series they run. They run, I think, two WSOP circuits every year, at least one Run Good series and one WPT series. So they got a little bit of everything. The food's great, the people are great, and Ben just he'll do anything. They especially when Run Good comes into town, they do like comedy nights and wine tastings, and they all dress up in costumes, and it's very a la Irish Poker Open that they just like to have a good time and have fun. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, we
Ben
should
is
go where
doing a
there's
lot
good
of
value
programs.
and where we can make money, but I like going in places where they have fun. That's what drives me these days.
Yeah, Ben does a great job at Thunder Valley, and people brag about him in that place all the time, and so I'm not surprised at your choice at all. I hear good things about them, and he does like to try different stuff, which and kudos to them. Just like the Borgata, Kelly's trying new things over there, and guess what? Sometimes the new stuff works, sometimes it doesn't, and they make adjustments, but we have to give them credit for trying something new for sure.
I love Kelly, Poker Boss. I love
Yeah.
MGM Sean McCormick, who's heading that ship.
Yep.
And they just had the 2200 PKO overlay quite a bit, and yet they paid the money to the players and they did things right.
Yep.
And it was like you said, bad scheduling, bad timing, a wrong. I think the wrong buy-in size for the wrong event at the wrong time, and they
Yep.
owned it. And you can't learn if you don't try things and you don't think outside the box. And I think
Absolutely.
you're exactly right. They're willing to try stuff even if it costs them some money sometimes.
Right. And in the long run, it's going to pay off because they'll make adjustments. And guess what? It gets better, not worse. So kudos to them for trying. And, Sean's a hardworking guy. And the one thing I admire, I call him a friend. And the one thing I have to say that I admire about him is his willingness to listen. And even sometimes it's hard. He hangs out with us in spaces all the time. And sometimes it's hard because people go at him. And you know what? He sits in that chair nice and tall and straight and it goes 10 toes. And you have to admire his work ethic and the fact that, yeah, I'm willing to listen, but I'm also willing to make changes after I listen. So kudos to them. That's not easy sometimes. It's not easy.
I admire Sean McCormick a lot. He is an industry leader. He is front forward. He puts his face out there. He puts his name out there. He puts his reputation out there. And just recently down at Beau Rivage, I'm sure you know this. So, yeah, you know what
I
I'm
don't know
about
what
to
they're
say.
doing. I don't know what the hell they're doing. Those tournaments down there. For those that don't know, they've had several tournaments end at like 6 in the morning the next day. Like they're playing all night long, right?
Yeah, Angela Jordison commented about like she went to bed and she woke up at 8 in the morning and the tournament was still running and she was like, "What
Yeah,
the hell is happening?" And then Sean McCormick was one of the first people that commented on that post and said, "Hey, I'm willing to talk this through. I'm heading down there the next couple of days. Let's sit down and grab dinner and let's have a roundtable. Let's talk about this.
right.
Why is this happening? What should
And
we
I
do
know,
about it?"
Dan Lowry, he finished his tournament he won the tournament at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. Like, who wants to play? And, I asked the question, did the players request to just continue to play? Or was that like how it was scheduled? Because there is a difference. Sometimes you will have a final table of players, they get down to three or four rather quickly, and they're like, let's just keep playing. That's different than it being scheduled that way. Um, and I don't know, but I'm not for that at all. I don't think it makes for good poker.
I tend to agree. I think it's problematic when poker turns into an endurance sport that challenges people to stay up for 18, 20 hours. I think one of the beautiful things about poker is it's available and open to everybody. And it should be something that's not easy. Like poker's hard work,
Right.
right? But I don't think that a 20-year-old who can stay up for 36 hours should have an advantage over a 60-year-old just because it's an 18-hour day or something like that. I think that's too
Right.
much. I think there's a fine line. Like 12, 15-hour days, that's what I was doing at the Bahamas. That seems reasonable. Once we start talking anything above 15 hours is a little too much in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm about the 12-hour mark. I think 12 hours is a fair number. People can go back to their room, get a good night's rest, because of course it takes you an hour or two to calm down and just to be able to go to sleep, So I just think that it's unfair to expect anybody to go all night long to finish a tournament. I just think it's so unfair. Um, just it doesn't make for good poker. I don't think it's a good look. So anyway, let's move on. Do you think players that have been banned for cheating should be offered an olive branch and allowed to back into the fold?
Such a difficult conversation because it's so nuanced. I think if you are blatantly cheating and you have shown that you're willing to do so to make money for yourself as an individual, I think typically the sentences and how long those sentences last should be longer than what we've done in recent history
Right,
as operated. But you have operators, you have individual casinos, you have individual operators, you have legal teams so it's way more nuanced than just they shouldn't be allowed to play. It's much more difficult to enforce. But I think that cheaters should not be allowed to play our game um, in much more stringent than we have been.
right.
Like,
And we can't talk out of both sides of our mouth. One minute we're saying when we catch cheaters, we're going to ban them for life. And then we catch a cheater and they get a slap on the wrist and they're back at the table. You can't have it both ways. If you're going to tell the public that this is what, is going to happen, then we have to stick to it. And we're talking about the worst case scenarios, right? The Ali's of the world. I'm not talking about something minor that should just be a 3-month suspension. I'm talking about the blatant, frog poison drinking folks of the world of poker. What are your thoughts about Ren Lin being rewarded for his cheating by being named a WPT Global Ambassador?
I think yeah, my initial thoughts are I kind of dislike it because it feels like the the message is there's a finite number of ambassadors in the world, and he leaves our competitor, and so we're going to jump on it and sign him with us. Now you can easily see that there's a lot of value for that brand to sign Ren Lin because he appeals to a certain market that they're trying to reach out to
A
and
target market.
encroach
Yep.
upon. Right,
Yep.
exactly. But as a player, as somebody who has somewhat of an online presence, and as somebody who always tries to do things right, when I see that, it discourages me. It disheartens me. I love Renlin. I've played with him multiple times. I think he has a good heart. But the argument shouldn't be he's a good guy and he's fun to play with, right? Action should have consequences.
Right.
And the message that it sends to everyone else is that if you're kind and you're likable and you appeal to our target audience, you can get away with stuff. And that is
Right.
a bad mess. That's a bad message, right?
Right.
We should
Right.
be rewarding people who do things right. We should be giving those people ambassador deals. And I'm not to say that those people don't exist in the poker world. There's a lot of people who do things right and they get rewarded for it. But it shouldn't be. I don't think Ren should have got the ambassador deal with WPT Global.
Well, and I had the same first thought that it sounds like you did, and that is, oh my God, there's so many people. I can list 10 people right now so deserving of being an ambassador that play by the rules, that are great, stewards of the game of poker, that are leaders in the community that are reaching back and helping others. I mean, there are so many deserving people for to become, to offer that position too, that it's really is disheartening. I definitely felt that way. And I thought about you as being one of those possibilities. And, there, all of us can think of people that are deserving of that privilege of becoming an ambassador. So it was very disheartening.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. I think the value of an ambassador to a site these days is pretty clear, and
Right,
that's how many signups can you convert for us? How many people can you get to join our site?
right.
And like it or not, Renlin's going to get more signups than I am, and that's just a fact. Despite me never cheating and him cheating, and you can say the severity of what that cheating was. He appeals to more people. He has a bigger presence. He has more career earnings. He appeals to the Asian market, and he's going to get more signups. So, like it or not,
I hear you.
uh, if that's their main goal, then I don't blame them. I just wish it wasn't the case.
Well, and it's just such a bad look. It's such a bad look. And the way they handled the PR, putting the tweet up, taking the tweet down, putting another tweet up, the whole, it just is such a bad look for poker. We wonder, all of us, get the bigger picture, but just think about those people we're trying to attract. The new sign up, the newbie to poker, the home game player that we want to bring to a card room, you know, they don't know the ins and outs. So when they hear a story about like this, oh, this guy got caught cheating 2 months ago, and oh wow, he just got promoted to an ambassador for one of the biggest companies in poker. Like, what does that do for the game of poker? I say a lot of damage.
Well, I think that's part of the problem is poker is very insular because we're very familiar with these things,
Right,
right?
right.
And the person you're describing, who we care about and we want to bring into our fold, isn't familiar with all those nuances and
Yeah,
details. They probably have no idea what Renlin did or why it's wrong or why they should be upset and not support him or the site that signed him. The the only thing that WPT Global cares about is that that player sees their name and
right.
then joins their site.
Well, and I
Um,
related to that. They may have seen that name a few months ago in a bad light, and now they're seeing him in a good light and being rewarded, is like what my point was there. But I totally agree with you. They definitely would not, the ordinary John Doe on the street would not know that background. And all they see is this person. Oh, wow, he's the new ambassador. Uh oh, Tim.
yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm here. Sorry, I lost for a second. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that there are pros and cons, and ultimately they're willing to accept the cons of that decision because the pros outweigh them in a financial aspect. But I wish that we were above that as a community,
Yeah.
and we rewarded the people that deserve it. Um, the Renland situation is tough because we like to think that our ambassadors and the people that we like and the people that represent our game are above reproach. And when that glass is shattered, it's hard to reconcile how we feel about it.
Right.
Um, for me personally, Ren, it was hard to swallow because I played with Ren a lot and he's so likable at the table and he's so easy to get along with.
And I'm
But
and I'm going to tell you, he's fun to watch in a live feed. I've watched him
yeah.
on a live feed before. He definitely is Mr. Personality at the table. He made a bad decision.
Yeah, and that bad decision is against the terms and conditions of that website, and it steals money from the other players. Um, Whether you want to believe that was his only first time doing so, and he wasn't really aware of it or not, he broke the rules, and that stole money from the other players at that final table. And I commend GG and WSOP for saying immediately, he's revoked and not able to play in this event. And I was sad to see him at the Bahamas because it kind of made that decision a little less valuable, right?
Yep. Yep.
If you're gonna take a stance, you should stick with it. And then he's right back in action, and then he has another deal with another company just because of the value that he offers in his name. So, yeah, it's
Well,
not great. I don't love that. That's
yeah.
what our community looks like.
Well, and I was at the press conference when Gigi Poker rolled out this big red carpet, so to speak, about their integrity board, right? And so when this happens with that Gigi Poker and the whole situation, I'm like, yes, they took the right steps. And then, a month and a half later, he's down in the Bahamas playing. And I'm like, so was that just to shut us all up? Like it was such a hollow, consequences. Like it didn't stick. They didn't stick with their word. And, how do I, as a player, take anything they say seriously anymore?
I think part of the problem is that we're never privy to the results of their investigations,
Right.
and they just expect us to trust what they've explored and what they've discovered. And it's really hard to do so because we're used to good people getting away with things, and if you don't know exactly what they discovered, like because they have the ability to go back into history that we don't have access to, and they
Right.
say, well, based on what we've discovered, which we can't disclose for legal reasons, here's our punishment. And then you just have to accept it. And it leaves a bad taste in your mouth because you just don't have all the information.
And for me, if they would have just like suspended him for like 6 months, I would have been okay with that. But I don't even think it was a 3 month period. You know what I mean? Like it was, I don't know. It just hit me the wrong way. And I was so disappointed with the whole, like, he's back in the Bahamas. I was like, wait, what? Like, what kind of message is this sending to would be cheaters, existing cheaters, whatever? Like, they're going to get away with it every time, is the message. So, anyway, I'm moving on because I'm going to get off my soapbox. But I do want to know your thoughts about Dara and David leaving the WPT sponsorship.
I love both of these guys. I've talked to them quite a bit about the decision. I actually just recorded an episode of the chip race with them just before
Right.
they made that decision. So I don't know if that's going to be released or not. I'm not sure. I think anybody who stands on integrity above cashing a paycheck has eternal love from me. It's a hard decision to make when you're trying to figure out if you're going to be able to pursue your passions and pay your rent, to say no, my
Yeah.
morals and my integrity are more important than those things, and those guys have consistently shown that that's the case. If they said, they took a strong stance against that situation, and then their company that was paying their bills made the opposite decision, and they could have shrunk into their cave, and they could have not made comment about it and just kind of hid for a few months so that their potential decision against what they had said previously went the other way. But instead they took a strong stance. They had public outcry, they wrote articles, they said
Right.
no, we're not okay with this. And I love those two guys. I know they're very polarizing and they have strong opinions, but they always mean what they say and they put their money where their mouth is.
Well, and I say kudos to them for making that what I know was a tough decision because their livelihood is connected to that job. So kudos to them for sure. AS Isaac, I saw you had your hand up. Did you want to ask a question, buddy?
Actually, no, but I hear you guys talking about Ren Lin, and you really made me think about it. I never even knew who Ren Lin was until he came out on Negreanu's vlog 2023. And that year, I actually ran into him into a few tables after that. And I think the last time I ran into a table that he was playing at was like 24. Yeah, for sure it was 24. But it's a trip, right? Like, again, he's a nice guy. Seems like a
Right.
cool dude. And it sucks how in this space, this happens, right? Like it does. Brent Kenny kind of reminds me of something in this situation. How it's like, you're like, damn, he's cool. He seems chill. All of that, right? And then you hear, oh yeah, but he fucking did what he did, and he's scammed a bunch of people, and yeah, it's always unfortunate to hear that these people who seem so relatable and likable end up doing these things. You really got to wonder though, right? What the nature of the cheating is. That's why I like what Terrence said when he was like, you don't know what the investigation results are. And that's the toughest part about everything.
Right, because we can't connect all the dots. We're guessing in some cases, right? And we're disappointed, and we know that we can deal with facts, but there's unknowns that we're just never going to know.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Appreciate you,
Yeah.
buddy. Go ahead,
It's
ASG.
usually no. I was gonna say it's almost atypical that it's not the nice people that you find out about when it comes to like cheating and stuff. Usually that's they use that to help their reputation and to have people catch them off guard and whatever. You brought up Bryn. I'm sure that's how a lot of these guys who I wouldn't say scam, but end up not paying people for a long time. They get off on their good attitude for a while, and then yeah, I heard Mike Pasta was a nice guy until he wasn't.
Right. Right. I mean, we could all name a name, right? And it's every time you name a name, it's more disappointing because it has to do with a game we all love to play, and the poker world is big, but not that big, and it's disappointing for sure. Hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. Um, what are the most amount of times you've rebought into a tournament, TJ?
Good question. I'll tell you if I know the answer for sure. I think that it's probably going to be the Mystery Millions at WSOP, which is a 1K bounty event.
Right,
And I think the answer is 5 entries, which isn't that much. Um, I think the maximum you could do in that event was 10, 2 entries per day, 5 starting fights, something like that.
right.
One K buy-in, and that was summer of 2025. And I did not cash any of those entries. Um, but yeah,
Uh-huh.
I think that's the answer. I could go back through my database because I track every single entry I play for my entire career, but I think it's 5 into a single event.
Well, and part of the reason I ask you this question, I've been asking my guests ever since last February this question because Cody Stanford went down to the Beau Rivage last February and he rebought into the $400 tournament 36 times. And so I interviewed him shortly after that. And so ever since, I've been asking my guests that very question. Now, the next question I'm going to ask is if I'm going to say this. Well, let me start all over. TJ, the world of poker is putting a new rule into place, and we want your input. We're going to limit the number of rebuys into all the tournaments in the world. How many rebuys do you think players should be allowed?
Good question. Not easy to answer. I think that there are competing interests at play across between professional players, recreational players, and
Right.
operators. I think the sweet spot for most events are one reentry per day. I think if you gun to my head, giving me an answer, that's the answer. I
Okay.
think that accomplishes the greatest good. I think that pleases the most people. I think that keeps the economy the most happy. A freeze out is great. I love a freeze out. The WSOP main event is the purest event in the world.
Right.
But in order to survive as a tournament poker player, when I travel, I pay for my flight, I pay for my rental car, I pay for my hotel, or whatever my expenses are, however I limit them. If I run into aces versus aces in the first level and the guy four flushes me and then I can't play another tournament for 3 days, it affects my ability to
Right.
do this for a living.
Of course.
And then if I'm a recreational player and I only get to play 3 weekends a year, and then I go out and I get coolered out of the tournament in level two, I also want to rebuy. So I think unlimited reentry is a jack in the box that has been let out that is problematic, and I hope we push back against it because it's troublesome and it causes a lot of issues for the poker economy. But I think a freeze out for every tournament is also problematic for other reasons that would limit the growth
Right.
of poker. So, gun to my head, one reentry per day would be my answer.
Well, and I'm going to say that conversation about reentries and rebuys is taking on some momentum the last couple months, which gives me great hopes because my view is 36 reentries is so bad for the game on so many different levels, and it's unnecessary. What is my magic number that I believe? I think six is fine, even. Six reentries into one tournament, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I would prefer two, maybe, just because I think about the new players or the people that can't afford more than one or two rebuys. And we have to consider everybody, not just those that can afford. Um, so I think, like you said, there's many layers to that conversation. But I know 36 is not the number.
Well, in most sports, like let's take baseball for example, if you had a team that had more money and after a strikeout they could pay X amount of dollars to get an at bat again, that team is obviously going to win more games than
Right.
the players who can't take that option, right? But at the same time, they are increasing the prize pool for the other players while they take their additional shots at the tournament. So I think, like for me, I went to the Bahamas and I had a plan, and I was going to fire maximum two bullets into the super main event. That's it.
Right.
So every player that fired 13, 14, 15 bullets, of which there were plenty,
Right.
made me more money by firing those additional bullets.
Well, and I get it.
Um,
That's one of those layers that we have to consider, right? But when you look at the overall picture, and I know the operators would never give us the data, what percentage, you know, of the player pool are buying 10, 15, 20, 30 rebuys? What's the percentage? Are we going to cater to 2% of the players field that want to rebuy 20 times? Or are we going to cater to 98% of the players field that are going to rebuy maybe once, twice, three times? So I don't know the answer to that because I don't have the data, but I can't, imagine there's more than maybe 10 that rebought 13 times. Do you think there's more than 10?
I think it's close. I think there was more than 10 that bought double digits, yes, but I think this goes back to the conversation about which ambassadors you hire, and it's for operators. It's all about who makes more money, and
Right.
that's why the pros and the people with what appear to be unlimited bankrolls actually have a bigger voice in the poker community than the recreational player because they make the operators more money. And I don't blame Cody Stanford for firing 36 bullets because the option was available to him and he thought that each individual entry was a plus EV choice for himself.
Right.
The question is, if you ask Cody Stanford, do you want the operator to give you this option? He might not. He might say, this is bad for poker, but
Well,
you're
I'm
going to
going to
give me
tell
the
you
option. And
exactly
so
what
I'm
he
going to
said.
take it.
I'm going to tell you exactly that. He said, as long as they allow me to do it, I'm going to do it. And I'm pretty sure he said the magic number for him was four, that he doesn't think they should allow more than four rebuys. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I keep saying this every time I think of it, and I never think about it after I go off air, but I have to go back and re listen to that interview. But I'm pretty sure he said four. But then in the next breath, he said, but Sherry, as long as they let me do it, I'm going to do 36. And a valid point that he's going by the rules. He's not doing anything, that he shouldn't as far as the rules are concerned. But he's definitely not on the 36 rebuys. That is not his choice for what he thinks should be done, which I think is interesting too.
It's all relative, right? Like if I
Yeah,
offered you a $1 million tournament that the buy-in was $1, and would you fire 36 bullets into that tournament?
of course.
Right. Because relative to your bankroll, that $1 offers extreme value. And
Of
if I tell you
course.
you can fire an unlimited amount of times, you would do so.
Believe me,
Is that good for?
I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. I truly, I get it. But, for argument's sake, we also have to look at the other people at the table. They allowed him to stay at one table for multiple rebuys. So now that table's also getting lopsided with chip stack sizes in a comparison to the other tables, right? So if when you really start thinking about it, it really is a disturbance to the tournament.
Yeah, I think the WSOP circuit main event gets it right. There are a total of 6 buy-ins. So if there's sometimes
Right,
there's 3 starting flights and then you get 2 per day.
right,
Sometimes there's 2 starting flights and you get 3 per day. And I think that's a nice, healthy balance. For the traveling tournament poker players, you have a great chance at making the money. And
right.
then for the people who are coming out to fire one bullet who live next to Cherokee, they don't have a severe disadvantage against the players with unlimited bankrolls. So I think like I said, 1 buy-in per day, especially for multi-flight tournaments, seems to be a healthy balance that everyone can be happy.
I agree. I totally agree. And it's not lopsided. It's something everybody can do. All right, let's move off of that subject and let's talk about this fantastic fourth place finish in the Bahamas Super Main. Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you. That's a fun topic. That's one of my favorite topics right now.
I bet it is. Did you make any big purchases with that big old bag of money?
Believe it or not, not really. I invested in, I fully maxed out my 401k. At the end of the year,
Good for you.
when you win a huge chunk of money at the end of the year, what you give to yourself is a bunch of logistical problems, and most of them are regarding like taxes and where do I have to put my money before
Right,
January 1st hits and that sort of thing. So I started an S corp and I started my own company just for all the tax purposes. As far as
right.
purchases, couple vacations and a couple nice meals, but nothing extravagant. I'm not going to go. I and then I played. Honestly, the biggest purchase, quote unquote, was I decided to play the Poker Go Tour Series down in Las Vegas, which was basically 10K turbos against the best in the world, which is not the best return on investment decision you could make. And I went over 5 in the bullets that I played there. But a fantastic experience, and I loved playing down there with those guys. And I never would have
Love
played
it.
that level of buy-in if I didn't have the huge pad to the bankroll.
Of course, but you know what? You got the opportunity, which sometimes you just got to take those opportunities that, as we all probably could attest to. Now, what percentage of yourself did you have for that tournament?
I had 66.6% of myself, so I ended up basically taking $2 million home.
Nice.
I sold. I love being transparent about this sort of thing because I think too few people are, and it's kind of a hidden veil in the poker community about selling action and staking each other and that sort of thing. I sold 8% to Jeff Platt. I sold 5% to Tana Karn, the president of Run Good Poker,
Yeah.
and then I had initially put up 20% on pokerstake.com, which is one of the public poker staking communities. And when I did so, I had a couple people buy like 0.1%, 0.2%. And then Josh Arie messaged me and said, me and Daniel Negreanu would like to each take 10% and just buy all of that action.
Well, and I'm
Um,
pissed
so
because by the time I knew you put it up there, it was all gone, and I was pissed.
and you can thank Josh
I
Arie and Daniel Negreanu
I
for
was
that fact.
so pissed. I was like, oh, TJ's selling action. Let me go. And I went and it was all gone. I was so pissed. Thanks,
So
REA and D
so
Negs.
10% went to
Jerks.
REA, 10% went to DNegs, 8% went to Platt, and 5% went to Tana. And then
Nice.
the other 66.6% was for myself. So it was very nice because sometimes you sell action to strangers or people that you don't know. But the
Right.
large majority of the action that I sold went to people that I'm good friends with and enjoy being around in the poker community. and being able to ship them hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end of December was a delight.
That's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. What advice did Cabral give you during that Superman?
Cabral was rooting primarily for Natasha Mercier, but
Who
I
was
was his
crushing
sec
it?
yeah, I was his second choice. He really only gave me one specific piece of advice early on in the final table. I flatted and opened with 8-7 suited on the button, which is a
Right.
mistake. Uh, and I got punished by getting three bet by Bernard Binder, who went on to win the thing.
Right.
And Cabral was, on the first break, he came up to me. He's like, "You're playing solid, no mistakes. You haven't made any mistakes except for one, and that was the 8-7 suited. Throw away that trash. This isn't a cash game. You're playing for $10 million."
Good
um,
advice.
which was which was good advice. Like it was a bad call. I had a reason for doing it, but it was
Right.
still a negative EV play, and I appreciated that. Martin is, very polarizing figure, but if you treat him well and you're kind to him, he'll be kind in return. That's been my experience with him,
Right.
and he usually roots for the good story, and he roots for what's good for poker, and I like that about him. So he was rooting for Natasha first and me second, and his one piece of advice was good advice, and it did resonate with me, and I appreciated that he was in my corner.
Okay. Okay. So, with that thought in mind, that he told you not to play 8-7 suited, what hand did you go out on? For my
Okay,
audience and
that's
my
not
listeners'
that
point of
that's
view,
not fair. That's not fair, Sherry.
no, I'm throwing your ass right under the bus, the train and the automobile.
8-7 suited was my demise. Thank you very much for reminding me. And on that note, I got to get out of here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I sit here listening to you because I actually wrote, I'm going to read to you what I wrote. And then you'll maybe understand a little bit better why I kind of threw you under the bus there, because I'm sitting here listening to you going, wait, this is great advice, but did you actually take it? And here's what I had wrote. I said, my listeners, as well as my friends, get to listen to my sage advice. That being, just fold those damn jacks pre-flop and save yourself a lot of heartache. In your case, TJ, I'm going to change it up and say just fold 8-7 suited pre-flop. And then I was going to ask you
Yeah.
why I say that to you.
I think so. I'll say this: they were two different situations,
They were.
but I do.
They absolutely
Yeah.
were. And we got to laugh about it. You got to laugh about it, TJ. Got to laugh
Oh,
about it.
I certainly do. While I can laugh about it while recognizing that I did make mistakes in both
Well,
situations. So 8-7 suited on the button with a deep stack in that situation, I should have just folded pre. And then 8-7 suited in the big blind. I actually like a shove more than a call three ways in that situation. I think shove
right,
was best, fold was second best. I'm talking pre-flop.
right.
Fold was second best, and call was the worst option. But then once I flop second pair against the chip leader with the super wide range, I actually don't hate my shove on the flop. It looks bad when you run into a flopped flush, of course, but he
Well, it
has
looks
a
bad because we can
super
see the
wide range.
cards. I mean, let's face it, it looks
Yeah.
bad because we can see the cards. I mean, we're not throwing you under the bus to kill you. We're just throwing you under the bus to have some fun with you.
You know what? One of the great things about poker is like I love when people call me out for making mistakes. It only helps me get better. Like some people get super defensive and they're like, oh no, they're like I had my reasons for doing this or this was the right decision or whatever. If you tell me like, oh God, you punted in that spot, I'll say thank you very much for telling me how to get better, and I'll move on because
I'm
very
going to tell you
infrequent.
something.
Yeah.
I would never say that to a player because guess what? You're sitting at that fucking final table, not me. How am I going to say something to you in that regard? No, sir.
And,
No,
and
sir.
poker's that wonderful game where bad players can win and variance dictates who wins quite frequently. The cream rises to the crop. But just because I made a final table doesn't mean I made the best decisions.
Hey,
And I fully,
we all make mistakes, and guess what? Come out smelling like a rose. My mom used to say that. You step in a pile of crap, and you come out smiling like a smelling like a rose, and that happens in
if
poker. Right?
Yeah, if I wanted to play a game where the best decisions made the most money every time, I would have chosen chess. But the game that I chose involves a lot of variance, and bad decisions get rewarded sometimes, and good decisions get punished. But you have to realize that the people who make the right decisions most frequently are going to be the ones that take the bigger percentage of the pot home. And so if somebody tells me that I made a mistake or that I punted or that I could have played a hand better, I'm not going to get defensive. I'm going to accept their criticism while also realizing that, no one's ever going to play perfect,
Right
especially
on.
in a situation where you find yourself so infrequently at a final table of a WSOP main event. Like we don't get to play that event maybe once or twice a lifetime.
Right.
And under the lights, under the pressure, under hundreds
Right.
of thousands of people watching you with pay jumps that are extremely real, like you have to accept that you're going to make some mistakes, and that's okay. And you just try to make the
100%.
best decision every single hand.
And guess what? Armchair quarterbacks are right 100% of the time. Nobody else is.
Yo,
Yeah, that's
that
what
is a
that's what I said. I feel like he would have played the same. Like if he had ace queen with the ace of spades or something like that, and then I shove and he calls and I double up. People are saying that I made a fantastic play, and it's
Right.
just we're so results oriented in poker that it's unhealthy. You have to realize that the cards could have very easily been different in that situation where my play looks like a genius instead of an idiot.
Well, you flopped a pair and you can't put them on a damn flush there. I mean, come on. I mean, yeah. No. All right. So go ahead, ASG.
Um,
Not
I
ASG.
was about to
Sorry.
say I
Isaac.
could say
Sorry.
something, but okay.
Sorry. Wrong person. Isaac. Go ahead, buddy. Sorry.
No, it's just that's so facts. Like poker is very unique in that way, right? Like you play football, there's certain things, right? Nice pass, nice catch, nice tackle. With poker, it's like nice bet, nice fold, nice call, right? Like there's so many variable things that can have you win in poker that I think that's what it is, right? Like, because I know people who, I don't know if it's like card entitlement, right? Or hand entitlement, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's like, okay, if you're a very studied, very GTO player, or something like that, and somebody makes a call with something, right? Like let's just say A7 suited, right? And it's like people lose their minds. I've seen people crash the fuck out on people over this, and it always just boggles my mind. Like there is no correct way to play this. You just play it, and if you're winning, I guess that's the correct way, right? So
And we can't always assume people play like we play or know what we know or they know more than us or less than us. So I feel like sometimes people assume that we're all playing on the same level as far as ability. And it's just not true. It just isn't true.
Well, it's the
yeah,
same
no,
thing on football
so
too.
true.
The coach goes for it on fourth down. If he's successful, genius move. If he didn't do it, he's the dumbest guy ever.
Okay, Chicago Bears last week, going 4 yards on fourth down. No, stupid decision by the coaches. Moving straight along because I'm still salty. Anyway, let's go back to this Bahamas Super Main event. In your opinion, TJ, was Benny slow rolled by
Oh
Wasserman?
yeah, 100%, no doubt.
Yeah, it was. It was even hard to watch. I'm
Well,
not
I
gonna
mean, he
lie.
clearly. Do you know
So
why? Because we're still hearing stories of maybe they had some whatever over the summer. Did you hear about anything of actually what started that?
yeah, I interacted both with Benny and with Wasserson after the fact and before the fact. I know for a fact that Wasserson does not like Benny, and I know for a fact that Benny does not like Wasserson. I don't know exactly what their history is, but I know it was personal, and I know both of them knew that it was personal. And yeah, Benny was a little hurt by it, but wasn't surprised by it. And in that situation, it main event, final table bubble. just it's not the right time to execute that play. Like that, I love a good slow roll in the right situation. That wasn't it. I thought it was uncool. And part of me wishes I would have called with pocket sevens just because I would have made a full house and busted both of them.
Yeah, I was about to say, how much were
But
you rooting for?
That's the
How
real
much were you rooting
controversy,
for
right?
slow roll karma versus making the final table and just the ladder?
yeah, I mean, I wanted to make the final table. Obviously, we're all selfish when it comes to the runouts that we want to see. I'll say both of those players treated me very kindly. Both of those players, I
Good.
consider, in another situation, I would have considered both friends from those couple final tables. They definitely didn't like each other, and I wasn't surprised at what happened, and I hated to see Benny go out that way. But Wasserson, he wanted to slow roll Benny. That was very, very clear. There's no doubt in my
Yeah.
mind. A lot of people were talking about maybe he was tanking so that Benny could get the pay jump. Absolutely not. Wasn't even a consideration. This was definitely personal and wanted to inflict some pain.
And, it just showed. I mean, he made a fool of himself. I think the end result was that publicly he made himself look so bad, right? I mean, I, it was unfortunate that Benny was slow rolled, but, no harm, no foul, really. But in real life, other than people maybe felt sorry that he was slow rolled, but, the person that did it, he made a fool of himself. People aren't going to forget
Wasser,
that.
Wasserson's extremely self confident and he doesn't really care what people think. And that was pretty evident in that situation. And I think he cares more about what the insular poker community think than what the public perception is. And I
Interesting.
believe that Wasserson's opinion is that a large portion of the poker community doesn't like Benny. And so he was fine like taking the lead for said people, and slow rolling Benny in that situation was something he relished.
Wow. Wow. That, wow, that's all I can say about that one. It's so unfortunate to hear, honestly. All right, now I got a couple of questions about Player of the Year points. Does that fourth place finish Player of the Year points go on last year's or going to roll over to this year's? Or I don't even know what the rolling calendar is for the Player of the Year. Is it January 1st through December 31st or?
Yeah, January 1st to December 31st, so they will not qualify for 2026. It is
Okay.
revamped as of 2026 for the first time ever. They're counting WSOP Europe, WSOP Summer, and
Right,
WSOP Paradise, but that's
right.
2026. Um, so yeah, I'm starting at zero. I have not had a tournament cash in 2026. I might never cash a tournament again. When will I run good? Uh, the the only thing that those counted for was for the PGT leaderboard points, which is a big reason why I played the Last Chance series in Las Vegas, was to try to
Okay.
get into the PGT free roll. But yeah, we're starting fresh January 1st, 2026. But for the first time ever, Player of the Year, both will have big cash prizes, and those all three series will count for it, not just WSOP Summer.
So are you going to go to Europe and try to make a run for it?
I think so. The big problem I have is that WSOP Europe and the Irish Poker Open overlap, and you can't play
Oh,
both.
many are
And that,
complaining about that. Yeah.
yeah, it hurts my heart because you either go for bracelets and the Player of the Year, or you go to what I've already told you is my favorite stop of the year.
Yeah.
And I haven't made a decision yet. But I really love Prague as well. It's one of my favorite European cities, which is now where
Oh, and
WSOP Europe will be
yeah,
held.
they're going back there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Razvedov, historically and personally, one of the worst European cities to have a poker tournament, and Prague, one of the best. So the move from Razvedov to Prague, in my opinion, was amazing and excellent. And now, we have the litany of riches of deciding between Prague for WSOP Europe or Irish Poker Open. And I don't think there's a bad choice there. It just depends on what your priorities are.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's exciting. ASG, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna give the WSOP info, but I just wanted to ask before we kind of move on because we kind
Sure.
of discussed it as two separate issues, and I just wanted to see what you thought of the. So you have the super, WSOP comes into Paradise, which they, you know, I'll say purposely scheduled to conflict with the WPT with this gigantic guarantee, and then you have Danny Negreanu representing the brand firing tons of bullets, and not only firing tons of bullets, but also buying in pros like yourself for multiple bullets. So it just feels even extra like, they made this guarantee to attract these whale wrecks and then have this pro edge so that there's no way that those wrecks can actually make money off of this gigantic guarantee that they got advertised to come for. I don't know. That's just kind of my feeling on a lot of what was going on there.
Yeah. I guess to your point, I'm guessing you're asking my overall thought on that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, the WPT versus WSOP battle is unfortunate, in my opinion. But I think it's good that we have competition. I think it's good that we have operators pushing each other. I don't like that as players we have to choose. I wish there was a world where we could play everything, especially the big series. But I understand why there's a battle for dominance within whose series is going to come out on top. That said, everything is public information. The structure, how many buy-ins you're entitled to, what the guarantee is going to be. Like it's all public. It's not like they're doing this under the veil of hiding the information from us. So we know what we're signing up for. We know what we're getting into. And you stated a fact that I think is untrue, that it's impossible for a recreational player to make money. The dream is still alive. You can go down to the Bahamas and fire one bullet and make money. Now your ROI is probably going to be lower because you have to beat Steven Chigwick and Daniel Negreanu 15 times, but you have a chance to make more money there than at the WPT because the guarantee that the WSOP is willing to put up. But we need to be informed participants. We need to be aware of what we're signing up for. We should be aware of what our ROI is in said field, how many bullets we can responsibly fire, what the guarantee is, who we're up against. Like all those things we need to be aware of. We need to be smart consumers and make decisions that are appropriate for our bankroll and our goals. And I think WPT, World Championships, WSOP Bahamas, and EPT Prague all provided something for different player types, depending on what your goals are and what your bankrolls are. So yeah, we can sit here and say that like WSOP, how dare they? How dare they make unlimited reentry of a 26K buy-in? But ultimately, they didn't do anything nefarious. They didn't do anything that took advantage of us. Like they told us what the event was, they told us what the deal was, and they told us what the guarantee was. So I admire the fact that they're willing to put such a huge number up there. I will say that they internally did not think they were going to hit that guarantee. They thought they were going to miss it and pay a huge chunk of money out of their own pocket. And that's a good thing for us players, right? Like willing to put a huge guarantee on a number. But I don't blame them for trying to execute market dominance. That's what companies are supposed to do. And then we vote with our dollars.
Yeah, I just think that there's like this problem of conflict of interest when you have Daniel Negreanu, who represents the WSOP brand, being the one who's both firing tons of bullets and uh, contributing to buy-ins for people of a tournament that has this kind of guarantee. To me, it's very similar to when Bryn Kenny allegedly had his horses all enter the same GG tournaments to help those make the guarantees. Like it just feels very what do you call it, dirty pool.
Yeah, I understand that sentiment. And D-Negs will get a spotlight on him whenever he is involved with anything with GG or WSOP because he's the biggest name in poker. And then it comes back to us not being sure of exactly what the situation is, just like when there's investigation into Ren Lin, right? If DNegs was transparent and said, "Yeah, I got 10 buy-ins for this event," maybe we wouldn't have the same deep feeling, right? Or my ambassador deal involves me getting 500K in buy-ins per year, and I can spend them how I want. But we don't know that, right? We don't know what the exact situation is, and so we're left to speculate and wonder exactly if we're being taken advantage of or not. I'll say this: I think personally that DNegs would be willing to fire 250, 500K of his own money, whether it was his money or not, or is coming from the deal that he signed. And there were multiple other big name pros that are not sponsored by GG that did so. And I have no ill feelings towards Steven Chidwick or Daniel Negreanu or any other big name pro that fired 10 bullets for the same reason that I don't hold it against Cody Stanford for firing 36 bullets. It's within the rules, it's
Right,
within the
right,
structure.
right,
The
right.
operator allows it. Just because
Absolutely.
it's a giant number, like we know what we're signing up for and we should be comfortable doing so. And if nobody showed up to the Bahamas because we disagreed with the premise of what they offered us, then they wouldn't offer it again. And our dollars vote would have an influence. But given the fact that if they offered a 60 million guarantee that turned into a 77 million, they're incentivized to continue offering similar events.
100%. They are in the business, right? They are in the business. And ASG, I get your point. Because people were blowing up the social media when Bryn Kenny was, you know, making sure those guarantees were met. And it reeks of the same type of concept. I totally understand what you're saying there, but um, did you have any other questions or comments on that, ASG, before I move along?
Uh, well, not related to that at all. I was, we kind of skated by. Are there any hands in particular besides, you just mentioned how everybody just talks about the bust out hands or the double up hands, but are there any hands that you think were particularly memorable on your run?
Oh,
Memorable ones, I'd say. Well,
tell
first of
us
all,
about the Sean Deep hand.
yeah, that was what I was going to mention. Shameless plug. I just released on my YouTube channel a breakdown of all the memorable hands that I played uh,
We
from for the entire run. But against
Okay, wait,
Sean
wait, wait,
Deeb,
wait, wait. Time out. His YouTube channel is TJ Reid Poker, right?
that's correct. Yeah, TJ Reed Poker,
Uh,
Torching with TJ is
yep.
kind of the channel name.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
we're
the
gonna
handle
plug
was.
it. We got to plug it all the way. Now, go ahead and tell your sort of story.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the memorable hand against Sean Deeb, which was fun, was prior to us being in the money coming into day two. Sean Deeb and I were at the table, and I opened 10-8 of diamonds from middle position. Sean Deeb's three bet from the small blind, but he three bet to like 2.8x, pretty small. And I decided to peel off of 30 big blinds, and the flop was 4 5 6 with two diamonds. So we had two overs, a gut shot, and a 10 high flush draw. He continued for two third pot, and I just jammed, and he beat me into the pot. He had pocket kings with no diamond, and so I had a 45% chance to win against his 55. It was basically a flip, and we just drilled the offsuit seven on the turn to make a straight. So if we lose that hand, we're out. We fired two bullets and we make $0. And instead, we win that hand and go on to turn it into a fourth place finish. It just speaks to the variance that is tournament poker, right? We lose a flip, we're out, and we're probably not having this conversation right now. And instead, we win a flip. My life has changed, and we're doing an interview. So um, that one was huge, and and Sean Deeb walked off. Jeff Platt interviewed him, and the first words out of his mouth was, "Sherry, can I curse on this?"
Uh, yes, I think I've done it myself.
He quote unquote said to Jeff Platt, "Fuck you, media people," and then, and then and then bought back in and sat at an adjacent table. I played with Sean multiple times. He's a good sport. He gets pretty emotional, but yeah, I like that. that clip was highlighted via video, and forever I have it to look back on. That my hand was revealed, and Sean gave a look like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this is happening," and then he lost.
Yeah, it's an epic hand for sure. And I you probably don't know this, but Sean used to hang out with us a lot here in Spaces. So we certainly like a good Sean Deep story for sure. And I appreciate you sharing that. Is there any other hand you want to share?
Um, I the hand that I enjoyed the most was the mystery hand that WSOP put up, where I had Ace Queen against Wasserson, the guy that slow rode Glosser, and I overbet the turn when he had second pair and got him to fold. In pure equity, it's probably the biggest all in I've ever made. It was probably worth like $3 million or something, which is just an insane thing to say, and got him to fold the hand, and that I'll be able to watch that hand for in perpetuity for the rest of my life. It was a really cool moment to be willing to pull the trigger in such a big spot. There's a couple hands that I probably made mistakes on. It's just that the ICM pressure is so heavy that
Right.
what's intuitive feels wrong. For example, I just spoke with Peter Chen today, who I think finished in seventh place, and we talked about a couple of hands we played against each other. One was he opened pocket eights under the gun, and in I think the cutoff, I called with pocket nines. In this particular scenario, I'm supposed to just fold pocket nines pre-flop, which seems crazy. And we talked about how ICM really affects what the optimal strategy is. And because we're not in these situations very often, it's really hard to know what the correct play is.
Right.
In a normal tournament, when there's 50% of the field left, we study those situations all the time. In heavy ICM situations, which heavily changes what the optimal strategy is and influences our range, we don't study them as often, or at least I don't. And so I made some mistakes. I'm supposed to fold pocket nines pre. I ended up winning that hand, but it was a suboptimal play pre-flop. And then
Right.
there's another hand where JNT, who had a massive chip lead, opened 10-5 of hearts from the hijack, and then the Brazilian at the final table just folded pocket nines in the cutoff. And that's actually the correct play. And in my YouTube video, I didn't criticize it, but I was like, whoa, this guy's playing pretty tight. Like he doesn't want to put any chips in with pocket nines. But he's supposed to fold pocket nines in that situation. So it's pretty eye-opening, and it's easy to criticize something that we don't see very often. But
Well,
it's
and I'm
it
going to
I
tell you,
yeah.
go ahead. Did you finish?
No, yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. My point was, it's kind of boring how tight you're supposed to play at a final table with huge ICM pressure.
Well, and I appreciate you hitting on the fact about folding hands because I think sometimes people um, don't recognize, think about, um, studied about, talked about, learned about how often you really do need to be folding what you might think is a premium hand like pocket nines. And so I love the fact that you're touching on it and folks can hear it from somebody that plays tons of poker and is an accomplished poker player. Because I do think it's important to be able to fold those hands and not get married to them.
Well, as somebody who came up in cash poker, folding is one of the worst things about poker. I hate it. I dislike folding. You can never win the pot if you fold. And yet it is an action that makes us money. That's how you should look about it. We talk, you want to win hands, you want to win money, right? That's the goal of poker. Naturally, you want to win.
100%.
But folding is just another option that makes us money. It,
100%.
it, and so, especially in final table and ICM situations, folding sucks. Like, there's no way you're going to rake the pot if you fold, and yet it's an important part of our game that we have to be completely okay with, and especially on a live stream where you're going to be criticized for doing so. How could you fold top pair there when the cards are face up and you can see what everybody else
Right.
has? Where results dictate whether you're a genius or an idiot. You have to be comfortable looking like an idiot sometimes.
Right. And I'm going to tell you something. I have played on live feeds before, and I do not give a flying flip what people think about my play. I just don't. And I may just be too stupid to care. I just don't. I just don't. I never go back and look at the comments people make. If somebody's, tries to, bring it to my attention, I'm like, I really just don't care. What somebody's opinion of me and what I'm doing, it's none of my business. Like your opinion of me is none of my business. And I'm good with that. Like you can't affect me with your opinion about me. But, I get it. I get it. Those, chats are brutal. And many people have had lots of problems after reading or hearing about what's being said in those chats. I mean, a prime example is a cartoon that was released this week. I'm not going to say what Twitter account, but we all know. And, some troll on the internet took it to a nasty level. And it's unfortunate, but for me, I just don't play into it. I don't look at it. I just scroll by it. Don't look at it. And when people come to me with it, I'm like, no, I'm good. You don't need to tell me. Um, because they're just not worth it. These people are nobodies in my life. So that's where I'm at with that one.
I think it's one of the qualities that turns a mediocre player into a great player is finally not caring what other people think. But it is something that you have to balance because you can't think you know everything, right? You just have to
Right?
selectively care about whose opinion you care about.
Yes.
Because if you read a YouTube chat comment that somebody that calls you a bad player or something, probably not worth your focus. But if you talk to a close friend or a good player that you trust and an advisor about it, and they tell you you played poorly, you should pay attention to that. So yeah,
100%.
it's a fine balance. You can't care what everyone thinks and what the YouTube chat thinks because it's paralyzing.
Right.
But you have to know
And
who you
they don't
trust.
even know me. Like they don't know me. Like like who are you? You don't even know me. Why would you even think I care what you think about me? I don't know. It could be because of my age. You know what I mean? Like, it could be because I've experienced life and I know what is important in my life. And somebody's, that I don't know their opinion of me, I don't give a flying flip about. So, anyway, moving right along. Um, do you know if there's going to be a poker.org lounge this summer?
If I were to guess, the answer would be yes. It's been something that we've loved providing every single year, and the public has responded in a very positive way. We have not planned for 2026 WSOP summer. We typically do so about 2 to 3 months out.
Got
I anticipate that there will be a lounge, yes, just because we've loved the reception that the public has given us. And it's kind of been a nice, safe third space for people at the WSOP. Um, so if I were a betting man, and I am, I would put my money on yes.
And I love that. Oh, go ahead.
300 that there will be a Poker Word Lounge.
I love it. I'm going to tell you, I'm one of the biggest promoters of that lounge because I just love it. I think it's a great place to just go and when you have a few minutes to take a little break and it's quiet and peaceful and yet it can be a little lively as well. And it's a great place to say, hey, Sarah, meet me over there. Let's chat for a minute. Or hey, Isaac, can we have a meeting about this? Let's go to the poker lounge. And it's a great place to have a short meeting or even a long meeting. I mean, and of course, I had the wonderful opportunity to record some interviews in the little mobile studio you guys had set up. It was such a privilege, and I loved every minute of it.
Eric Holreiser is very willing to invest money in a place that is good for the poker community. And having a place where you can do interviews, or you can have a coffee, or you can sit and watch the live stream, or you can have a snack, or you can connect with other members of our community is something that he sees a lot of value in, even if it's not financial value. So I really would like to see that be a recurring thing every single year, and I hope it is the case. And if I have any influence in making it happen, then I will.
Well, and I love that and I appreciate that. And Eric does do a great job, and you guys, the whole staff does, for sure. And it's just such an inviting place. It's got lots of cool decorations and it just has a great vibe and a lot going on, lots of going on there. Authors are there signing their books. And then you had a chess night and you had a comedian night. And so lots of stuff being offered in that lounge. And it was just a nice break away from the action, so to speak. And yeah, I just love it. I just think it's a great addition to the WSOP for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's funny how that came together. We wanted to provide a safe space and give exactly those things that you just mentioned. But there's so many things on the back end that you don't even think about, like what you're allowed to do because of certain contracts, and what you're
Right.
allowed to do because of the the food industry contract that they have, and
Oh, yeah.
what you can serve and what you can't serve,
The
and uh,
unions.
the unions, exactly. So I think that he was willing to fight for it, and like WPT Gold, I think they were the ones that had the place out at the country place
They
outside
did.
at
Yep.
the country bar.
Yeah,
Like
the
that's
old
great,
red.
but yeah, it's just there's such a big difference in having to go outside to that space and having a place right next to the tournament area, as far as how you spend your time and how you spend your breaks. So I would love to continue to see a spot right there available to anybody and everyone who wants to access it. We don't ask for any money. Poker doesn't ask for anything. Just all you have to do is sign up and join what we call the org, which is a absolutely free community to join, and put your name and email down so that we can tell you about events that we have going on and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a great hangout place, and I think I speak for many, and we just appreciate the effort on our behalf as players for sure. And I do hope it comes back this year. I can't imagine going to the WSOP and it not being there. That's for sure. Do you see yourself writing a book in the future?
I've been asked that question a ton of times, and most of it is usually regarding my background with religion and Jehovah's Witnesses more than poker, even though poker is the end result. So probably is the answer. I have a lot of, I don't want to say self doubt, but like questions like why would anyone care about this, or why would anyone read this, and I have to throw those aside because I have a lot of people saying that they would read this and they would be interested in that. So probably down the road when things slow down a little bit and I'm
Right,
able to look back and put things in perspective, um, because for me it was absolutely normal and it was my life, and it wasn't that interesting, but
right.
for everyone I talked to about how it turned out and what the background is, they're all extremely interested. So I have to trust those people telling me that they would read it, and realize that that's indicative of how the public sentiment would feel about it as well. So probably, and there's a ton of stories there that I haven't told many people, and my mom would probably freak out about it if she read it herself. But I think there's value there, especially for people who grew up in similar situations to me.
Well, and I'm just going to tell you that my son dated a young lady that was raised in a Jehovah Witness atmosphere, and I would definitely read the book because they're no longer together. But it's very curious to me because I just don't know. There's just so much I don't know about the religion, and so I definitely would read the book.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying so. There's not a lot of people who have written books who grew up in there, and I've read a couple of them, and I was fortunate and or unfortunate enough to be extremely serious about the religion, and I went to their world headquarters. I took a vow of poverty, and I served full time in New York City where their world headquarters is, and it was my whole life for 22 years. And I think there's a story worth telling there, and especially if it's beneficial for people who grew up in similar situations.
Right. Right.
Um, and even now, like, I'm involved with certain ex Jehovah's Witness communities, or people who what they call as physically in but mentally out. Like, they don't believe what the religion teaches, but they're in a situation where they can't really leave right now.
Right.
It's especially hard for young people, 16, 17, 18-year olds, who, if they were to denounce their faith or leave, they would lose their family, friends, connections, etc.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so I think there's a lot of there's the if telling my story can help those people, then I think I see more value in doing so unselfishly. But I haven't taken the steps to do so yet, and yet I and very much enjoy sharing this story with anyone who wants to hear it.
Well, and I'm going to just tell you that that book could be very helpful to those folks that you have mentioned. That, sort of there is life after. And, you get, I just kind of chuckled in my own head when you said you um, devoted your life to the life of poverty, I think is the way you worded it. And, here you are, $3 million richer in a month. There's some certain irony to those sentences, right? Um, and I think people would benefit, especially those of young minds, 16, like you said, 16, 17, 18, that are soul searching if that life is really what they want, or is there something else that they want? And hearing your words could help them with those decisions. So I will look forward to your book, sir.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I realize the irony in those two statements. And as early as earlier this, I think yesterday, I'm currently in the Bahamas with a on vacation with a couple who I've known for 10 years or so now.
Right.
And they just recently got married, and we took them down here for a vacation. And
Nice.
he told me, I remember when you were sleeping on your own couch and renting out your own bedroom to a roommate so that you could save up some money. And look where you are now. Um, so
That's a
coming from
moment.
a yeah,
That's a
coming from a
moment.
place of vow of poverty where I committed to never making any money in a legal way, to making a final table of one of the biggest poker tournaments of all time. I realize the dichotomy of those two
Yeah.
situations. And there's a lot of things that could, like I said, if I would have lost that flip against Sean D, none of this happens. And so there's just so much variance that in some ways feels unfair in the poker community, where I might not have ever achieved what I just achieved. But it also makes you appreciate when it does happen, because it's not guaranteed.
Right. And you often hear winners, people that are making it to the final four or final three or winning a tournament. Because I think all of those folks are winners, right? And often you hear them say, you know, I was down to, four big blinds. And the next thing I know, I'm the chip leader of the tournament. And, my whole day was up and down and around the bush and up the hill and down, down to the gutter, and the journey of that tournament. And no journey is smooth sailing. And you have those bumps in the road, and it's how you survive those bumps in the road, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's why we sign up to poker tournaments, because of what could be and what if. We realize that it's very unlikely to win or make the final table, and most of the time you lose. And yet, it's the possibility of the best case scenario that keeps us coming back. And when those best case scenarios come to fruition, you better damn appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we have to remind ourselves there's only one winner. 10,000 people in a tournament, 9,999 are losers. One winner, folks, perspective as well. All right. If you could change one thing in the poker world, what would it be?
Oh my God, that's an extremely difficult question. Well, I'm gonna completely remove the shackles and say I wish that we were much more public friendly. Wish there were way more outside the poker world sponsors. So take us back 20 years ago when we have beef jerky companies and whatever you want to say, much more publicly accessible. We were on ESPN. We were making the top 10 highlights. We had outside of Poker World sponsors. And that's what I want to get back to. I don't have the answers. I don't know what gets us back to that point, but that's what I want to see. I want to see us be
Well,
much more
I will
accessible
tell.
to the public. And instead of cornhole on ESPN, I want to see poker.
I love that. And I totally agree with you. And I don't know, like I think we have to look back and see, when did we lose those public sponsors and why? Was it when we lost ESPN? Did they go away? Did they go away before we lost ESPN? After? The same time? I think we have to take a good hard look at that. There are so many sponsors out in the world sponsoring all these different sports. And yet in the poker world, all we can get are poker brands and products to sponsor poker. And I think we are so short-sighted on that, and definitely worth looking into.
I think that ultimately, like I try to look at the incentives and what the motives are for these companies. And,
Right.
when it comes to sponsors, their motives are what's going to make money and what's going to get viewers. And poker just became, unfortunately, for the public viewer, more and more boring over the last 2 decades. And you can't blame the players for that because boring equals profitability, and the players' incentives are what's profitable. Um, but it doesn't grow the game and bring in sponsors. We want entertainment. We want something that's fun to watch. We want fast action. We want lots of engaging, cool moments. And those just don't exist as frequently now. Like you look back at the Chris Moneymakers and the Darvin Moons and the Jamie Golds. And right now we might look back at them and kind of make fun of them and like their suboptimal plays and how their table talk and stuff like that. But that's a very insular view. As a public view, those things got the views, they got the clicks, they got the engagement, they got the entertainment. Um, and so we have these competing interests of the players who are looking to maximize their own profitability and the potential sponsors and the operators who want to get views and clicks and entertainment and engagement. And they're very opposite competing interests. And I don't know the solution, but I would love to see a world where poker was in mainstream media again. And I know that's not reinventing the wheel. Like all of us want to see that, but it's a very difficult problem.
I totally agree. And I'm not sure what the solution is, but we certainly spend money on all kinds of stuff. And maybe we need to, spend it on a little research to figure that very topic out. Not sure. But definitely worth looking at that subject for sure. Go ahead, ASG. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. So related to that, what did you think of, and how do you think in the future it could be improved in regards to the Cabral and William Kassouf situations this summer?
Oh man, it's just I have strong feelings. I think Kasuf is pretty bad for the game, and I'll say that pretty honestly. I know the media companies, including PokerWorld, who I work for, platformed him quite a bit, and I think that's just a response to what the public likes to click on in social media, and that's going to be controversy and polarizing things, and that's unfortunate, but you can't deny that that's what gets views. And anybody that's in the business of social media success will lean towards what gets views. And I understand why people hate that, and I understand it's a negative thing. But I think as a player, Kasuf is not good for the game. I think he berates other people. He treats other people poorly. It's not a welcoming environment, and we should shun those who do not create welcoming environments. I understand why Kasuf and Cabral are compared to each other, but I think there's a vast difference in the player experience between what those two provide. Kasuf is belittling, angers people, abuses people, and makes it very uncomfortable to play at the same table. Cabral is Cabral. He talks a lot. He's loud. I know he annoys people, but I don't think he like takes advantage of that annoyance as much as Kasuf does. And
And he doesn't hit
I
below the belt with his insults,
Yeah, Kasuf is it feels very aggressive.
right?
And Cabral is loud, and I understand you don't like him. I know it's hard to play against him. I know it's hard to stay focused. And I think to a certain extent, he takes advantage of that in a similar way that somebody like Daniel Negreanu does, where speech play and talking is an advantage for said player. But I would far rather play against Cabral than I would Kasuf. If I had to spend 12 hours at a table with one of those two people, I'd choose 8 Cabrals against a single Kasuf, to be honest. That said, there's competing interest in the operator side who has to decide how they have to handle that individual and how they build rules about that individual, and the media side who showcases and platforms that individual. And those are always going to be two different decisions. Media is going to do what gets clicks. They're
Yep.
always going to do that. What's
Yep.
going to get controversy, what's going to create engagement, who's going to comment on a clip of that person. Yeah, me as a player, I love seeing Jason Kuhn going against Steven Chidwick, even if neither of them says a single word. The hand itself is going to be worth talking about. But that's going to get 3 comments on Twitter. If I throw a pic of Kasuf talking to Griffin Benger and calling each other check your privilege and sucking out on each other kings against aces, that's going to get 1 million views, and it's not hard to see why a media company would choose that clip over the other one. And so I want to see operators protect the players, protect their interests, and make it a warm, welcoming environment where everybody is comfortable in playing, protect the rules. But I also never, ever blame media companies for leaning towards what gets engagement.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I like to do a little thing called rapid fire. I'm going to give you two choices. You can pick either one or neither. Are you game?
Let's do it. I love that.
All right. Comedic movies or horror movies?
Horror movies, my favorite genre, no doubt.
Oh, Lordy. Never even allowed them in my household, believe it or not. Turkey or ham?
Turkey.
I knew you were going to say that after you lived on it in paradise. Do the dishes or do the cooking?
I do the cooking. Love cooking. Love cooking. Love baking. Dishes are terrible.
Oh, I love it. Cigar or a bong?
You say cigar or what?
A bong.
Neither. I've never smoked. So I've never smoked a cigarette, a cigar, or weed in any way.
All right. Beach or mountains?
Beach, 100%. Snow is terrible. And I hate skiing. I hate snowboarding. Anything related to snow is the worst. And the beach, tropical vacation. I'm sitting in the Bahamas right now. Come on.
Sick brag. Sick brag. Gummy bears or Sour Patch Kids?
Sour Patch Kids. I love sour things and I love spicy things. I love bitter things. Pretty much, I hate myself.
You're so funny. Texting or a phone call?
Depends who I'm talking to. I never will turn down a phone call from a friend. I love connecting with people. I think we are averse to doing so. So I probably choose a phone call between the two, but I understand if people hate seeing a phone number pop up.
Well, I love that. And I like to talk to people for sure. And sometimes a phone call is necessary because a text is too many letters and words and it'll take 15 minutes when a 2-minute phone call will do the trick, right? So like you, I use both adamantly for sure. Well, I'm going to let you off the hook. We've been going at it for a while. And like I said, and when you asked me how long we'd be, I said, I typically go for an hour, but sometimes it runs over. So I appreciate your time. I'm going to let ASG, you have one more question, and then we're going to end it. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
Just final question: will the since it's a hot topic, will the tax bill affect any of your poker play this year?
Good question. I before I won what I won in the Bahamas, I planned on reducing my volume quite a bit, and mostly because of the tax bill. Now it's not as big of a problem just because I get to do more what I enjoy doing, and the slight margin that it's going to cost me isn't as big of a deal in the overall scheme of things.
Right.
But more and more, I'm confident that it's going to be reversed before 2025 comes to an end or 2026 comes to an end. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, but I understand if people reduce or eliminate their volume because of there's no guarantee that it's going to be repealed.
Sure.
So for me personally, it's less of a concern, but I do think it's going to affect the overall poker economy until there's more clarity.
Thank you for that. Uh, like I was saying, I appreciate you. Been nice getting to know you a little bit better. Hopefully, our paths will cross. If nowhere else, in that poker.org lounge this summer. Um, Good luck to you. I can't wait to hear how your 26 is going to go, TJ.
Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate you having me. I hope we do get to, share a coffee or something in the Poker Org Lounge, and you continue doing these spaces because I think they're a fun, valuable contribution to the poker community.
Appreciate your kind words for sure. Um, I want to continue with the spaces because some have turned them into misery and horrible things. And I continue to want it to be a positive thing for poker. And the only way we could do that is together. So appreciate you joining me this evening and look forward to following your 26 and talk to you soon. And thanks to everybody that is listening currently. I see Michael and Sarah and Exec Deck. Appreciate all of you and ASG and Isaac was here earlier and Barry and all of those that have joined currently and are going to listen to the replay in the future. I appreciate all of you. If you're on the felt this weekend, good luck. If not, go out and touch the sand, the snow, the grass, whatever it is in your area. Appreciate y'all. Good night, everyone.